So one of the topics I talked about, in fact, it was the second topic I talked about in the recent Topics on My Mind, which you can find here on my YouTube page as well as at B.W. Rose's Discussions, and you can find it individually as part of the playlist, Topics on My Mind. But the second one I talked about was the rumor speculating and being talked about that the Writers and Actors Guild strikes that are currently going on could extend to 2024. And that might still be the case. However, you know, as a lot of people have pointed out in their own unique ways, from John Campea to many others, this is a game of chess. This is a game of chess. This is a game of, basically, can you top this? This is a game of being basically one step ahead, like who is essentially the smartest beings, around, like who's got the advantage. Now, recently, the AMPTP and the Hollywood studios, like Disney and Warner Brothers and all them, resumed negotiations with both the Writers Guild and we can assume the Actors Guild to an extent. But as far as the writers go, a lot of people have speculated, and I've talked about this before, others have talked about this, that everybody has speculated based on, reports throughout the past few months that, the AMPTP and the Hollywood studios firmly believe that the writers will be the first to really fall. Like out of both of these strikes, they will be the first ones to crumble because they will be basically having to face financial burden, at the fact that they're not making much money anymore. And the fact because they're not making much money, they will be losing out on a lot of things that they have to pay monthly or annually, basically pay monthly and annually, once in a while. Like monthly mortgage, rent, car payments, you name it. So, electric bills, you get the idea. Basically all the things that they would feel is an essential to living, especially a home, a roof over their head, basically they would probably be on the verge of being without. So they made a counteroffer to them. And apparently they felt this offer insulting. Now, what's funny is other people are looking at this, and believe it or not, others feel it's not insulting. In fact, I was listening a little bit to Clownfish TV and Neon and Geeky Sparkles, and they looked at that, and even they were like, "Really? You're insulted by this? How can you be insulted by this?" Well, here's why they were insulted, because what happened is the AMPTP in the Hollywood studios, in this game of one-upsmanship, this game of chess, this game of who's one step ahead and has the advantage, they decided to publicly release the counteroffer that they made. Now, here's what it says, and I'll provide the link in the description. You guys want to look at it yourself. But I have it in my hands. I printed it out. It's a 6-page deal. But here's basically what they said. Here's the highlights of the comprehensive package, the counteroffer that they made, the comprehensive package. Here's the highlights. Significantly higher compensation. This is the highest wage increase for the WGA in 35 years, a compound 13% increase over the 3-year contract, with an increase of 5% in year 1, 4% in year 2, and 3.5% in year 3. Continuing on, it says, on top of wage increases, a 15% increase in minimum weekly rates for Article 14 writers, other than story editors or executive story editors, is the first year of the agreement, with further general rate increases in the second and third years of the agreement. This would take a writer from, get this, $8,088 a week to $11,000 $371 a week for guarantees up to 9 weeks. And then $8,240 a week to $9,476 a week for guarantees of 10 to 19 weeks, and $7,412 a week to $8,524 a week for guarantees of 20 to 29 weeks. All are 15% increases. Now, here's what's interesting. Continuing on. High budget SVOD residual increases. High budget SVOD residual increases. Now, what is SVOD? Basically, that's essentially renting or even buying a movie, but more specifically renting a movie off, let's say, Vudu, iTunes, Amazon Prime, Comcast, Xfinity, if you will, AT&T, you name it. Google Play, you name it. That's what it is. This is what the high budget SVOD residual increases would be. Total worldwide, domestic and foreign residuals would increase from $72,067 to $87,546 per episode for 3 exhibition years. That, one would say, sounds pretty good. One would think that. Now, continuing on, and I quote, "A new structure to train writers to become the showrunners of tomorrow by guaranteeing the length of employment and requiring that at least 2 mid-level writers chosen by the showrunner be assigned to production. The AMPTP is committed to allowing the showrunner to select at least 2 mid-level writers to be assigned to production who are each guaranteed at least 20 weeks of employment unless the production period is shorter." Continuing on. A new compensation structure for development rooms. Writers will be guaranteed a minimum of 10 weeks of employment, and for Article 14 writers, other than story editors or executive story editors, the week-to-week rate of pay will increase by 43.8% over the current rate, raising the rate from $9,888 per week to $14,214 per week. Now, continuing on. Landmark projections for writers surrounding the use of generative artificial intelligence. Written material produced by GAI will not be considered literal material. A writer will not be disadvantaged if any part of the script is based on GAI produced material, so that the writer's compensation, credit, and separate rights will not be affected by the use of GAI produced material. Increased data transparency to reflect the internet, increased data transparency to reflect that the internet has changed the dynamics of the entertainment business. For the first time, viewership data in the form of quarterly confidential reports is to be provided to the WGA that will include total SVOD view hours per title. This increased transparency will enable the WGA to develop proposals to restructure the current SVOD residual regime in the future. The AMPTP member companies are committed to reaching an equitable agreement to return the industry to what it does best, creating the TV shows and movies that inspire and entertain audiences worldwide. The full details of the AMPTP member companies' new proposal presented to the WGA on August 11th are provided in the appendix below. So basically, people look at, they look at this and they're like, well, this shouldn't be a problem. There shouldn't be a problem, right? Well, here's the appendix and everything for the new proposal. It says, and I quote, everything basically I just talked about is guaranteed minimum employment in development rooms. That's already been put on there. And also the 15% increase for backup script fees and 50% increase for pilot scripts for high-budget SVOD series. Now, continuing on, required employment in the writer's room on high-budget SVOD and paid television series or serials. The showrunner may select at least 2 writers to be employed together with the showrunner for a period of at least 20 consecutive weeks in the writer's room, but not to exceed the duration of the writer's room. Extended employment duration protection. To provide critical protection experience to writers who aspire to become showrunners, the companies proposed that following the closure of the writer's room for a single camera high-budget SVOD and paid television series or serial, the showrunner may select at least 2 writers for employment, again, during production of the series or serial for a period up to 20 consecutive weeks, but not extend beyond that period of production. To the extent practicability, the company will accommodate the writer's professional availability in scheduling the writer's protection assignment. Artificial intelligence productions. The company's proposed landmark projection, artificial intelligent projections, or protections, not projections, but protections. Artificial intelligence protections. The company's proposed landmark protections for writers surrounding the use of generative artificial intelligence, GAI. The companies confirmed that because GAI is not a person, it is not a writer or a professional writer, as defined in this MBA, and therefore written material produced by GAI will not be considered literal material under this or any prior MBA. The proposal provides important safeguards to prevent writers from being disadvantaged if any part of the script is based on GAI-produced material, so that the writer's compensation credit and separate rights will not be affected by the use of a GAI-produced material. Should a company furnish a writer with written material produced by GAI, which has not been previously published or exploited, the company's purpose, GAI-produced material is not considered assigned material, which is when determining the writer's compensation. For example, if the company gives a writer a GAI-produced screenplay and asks the writer to rewrite it, the writer will receive the fee for a screenplay and with no assigned material. And not a rewrite. Or if the company gives a rewrite, or if the company gives a writer a GAI-produced story as the basis for a teleplay, the writer will receive the story and teleplay a rate. The GAI-produced written materials will not be considered source material for purposes of determining the writer's credit. The GAI-produced written material will not be the basis for disqualifying a writer from eligibility for separate rights. The company will disclose to that writer that the material was written by a GAI. The companies also agree to the WGA's proposal that a writer may not be required to use GAI in order to write literal material. Okay, give me a breather here, a little bit. So yeah, basically it's just a lot of things as well here. It says it's worth noting with this proposal, the companies are now conferring greater protections on WGA members with regard to a GA-generated material than writers now possess if the studio were to give a writer a script that the studio acquired from a UK writer not working under the MBA and ask the writer to use it as a basis for writing a screenplay or teleplay. So yeah, this is a lot going on here, a lot happening. For example, here we have, if I can get a good look at this, guys, I'm trying to do this as quickly as I can. First ever terms and conditions for AOVA or AVOD. In a first, the companies have agreed that high budget AVOD programming defined using the same budget and programming links thresholds acceptable to high budget SVOD programs will be generally subject to the same terms and conditions that apply to a program made for basic cable. Currently, no residual is payable for continued use on a AVOD platform. With this proposal, a residual equal to 2% of accountable receipts is payable for continued use beyond 26 weeks of a high-budget AVOD program on an AVOD platform. First terms first ever terms and conditions for writers of non-dramatic SVOD. For the first time ever, writers of HB SVOD comedy variety programs will receive the same terms and conditions that apply under Appendix A, with modifications to adapt provisions related to broadcast or for streaming into account for shorter order programs. Let's see, elimination of grandfathering of new media programs. Grandfathering will be eliminated for high-budget SVOD series subject to the 2014 and 2011 MBAs. This results in writers of new seasons of series that were written under those earlier contracts receiving higher residuals that are otherwise reserved for new shows written after the agreement goes into effect. Guaranteed second step for theatrical screenplays. In an important improvement for the writers of feature films, the companies have agreed to a guaranteed second step for writers employed at a 200% or less acceptable minimum. This means that when a company initially employs a writer to write the first draft of the original screenplay, it will be required to provide the writer the first opportunity to perform a rewrite at no less than the acceptable minimum compensation. Substantial increase for writers of features intended for an initial expeditional SVOD. The minimum story and teleplay rate for HB SVOD feature of 96 minutes or more with a budget of $40 million or more made for SVOD platform with 20 million or more subscribers will increase immediately to $100,000, an 18.3 increase. The residual base will increase by even more, 25.7% to $75,000, which means more in residuals for the writers of those programs. All right, this is a lot, I'm telling you. This is a lot, I'm telling you right now. Historic general wage increases. Basically, it says that in an offer that represents the highest wage increase for writers in 35 years. Again, basically I mentioned what it was, 5% year 1, 4% year 2, 3.5 in year 3, basically representing a compounded 13% increase over the 3-year contract. Basically, high budget SVOD residual increases. The producers proposed increases residuals for use of high budget SVOD program or foreign streaming platforms by 78%, increases residuals by 22% overall for the largest services. This is also on the heels of the hefty 48% increase of high-budget SVOD residuals that the parties agreed to during the 2020 negotiations, and which has only now kicked in for the material written during the 3rd year of the 2020 contract. As part of the new offer, the companies are proposing to calculate the fixed foreign residual based on the number of foreign subscribers to the SVOD service, rather than a percentage of the domestic residual, and have increased the previous offer for the percentage payable for each foreign subscriber. The offer also increases the residuals payable to exhibition years is 8 to 12 by 52% and eliminates the 2 lowest domestic subscriber tiers so that the lowest subscriber factor is 65% instead of 20%. The foreign residuals payable for a single episode of a 1-hour series made for Amazon Prime Video, Disney Plus, Hulu, or Netflix would increase from $18,684 to $32,830 for 3 exhibition years. Total worldwide domestic and foreign residuals would increase from $72,067 a year to $87,546 per episode for 3 exhibition years. Over 10 exhibition years, the foreign residual would increase from $32,308 to $58,820, and the worldwide residual would increase from $124,615 to $1,056 or $156,000 and $854. Like I said, it's a lot here. Staff writers to receive script fees in the first and if first companies agreed that staff writers employed under Article 13 will receive script fees in addition to their weekly salary. This represents a 46% increase for a staff writer employed for 20 weeks on a 1-hour network or high-budget SVOD series who writes one script. Minimum for overall deals doubled. The union AMPTP have a tentative agreement to double the salary threshold at which a writer may be employed on an overall deal. So yeah, it just talks about a lot of other things, you know, that. So yeah, I'm not going to get too much into it. Like I said, I'll provide a link for you guys to read it yourself. But basically, it's it's just saying this, like, for example, at the end here, they say there are examples of the new proposal in action. They say examples are $69,590 for a staff writer, 31% increase, $129,000, $129,780 for story editors and executive story editors, 31 increase. $142,140 for all other writers, producers, 44% increase. Anyone who writes a script while in the development room is paid extra. Example, $43,000 for a 1-hour script. Agents can negotiate higher rates. Regular rooms, writers working under a typical 20-week guarantee, the most common guarantee for writers, even though writers often will earn $95,460 for a staff writer, 5% increase for 20 weeks of work, $155,888 for story editors, executive story editors, 5% increase for 20 weeks of work, $170,480 for other writers, producers, 15% increase for 20 weeks of work. Any writers who write a script while in the writer's room is paid extra, $43,000 for 1 hour, like I said. Most writers, producers negotiate higher weekly rates. Most writer producers negotiate higher weekly rates. This is just the minimum. Note, for a typical 10-episode order, most writers will work 20 to 24 weeks. Co-executive producers and executive producers will likely work for at least 40 weeks. So yeah, basically it's just a lot of what's been mentioned before. So I try to get this all together here. But yeah, again, a lot of people read this, and when you read it, you'll see it too. But a lot of people look at this and they're like, you know, seriously, you guys you're angry over this? You're angry over this proposal? You know, here's the thing. Some people like me and you, and even Neon and Geeky Sparkles of Clownfish TV, you know, they would look at that and they would say, well, they'd be like, damn. You know, I would go for that. That's a good proposal, if you will. That's a great proposal. But apparently the Writers Guild feels insulted by it. It's like, well, wait a minute, you're getting what you ask for and everything, but you feel insulted? That doesn't make sense. And apparently they're not happy that the Hollywood studios and the AMPTP made this public. They're not happy about it. And even one lady, I guess legal of a lawyer or something like that, basically says this is going to backfire in the studios and the AMPTP's face, because this is not right. This is going against basically, you know, this is basically, she's saying what they're doing is, you know, they're kind of breaking the law a little bit. Not entirely, but they're basically infringing on what they shouldn't be infringing on. And basically they're intimidating. Because what's going on here, again, like I said earlier, is this is a game of chess. This is a game of, can you top this? This is a game of one-upsmanship. And right now, you know, it's a game of cards too. Like, you know, this is the part right now. This is the part right now where if you're playing cards, they just drew, you know, one of the winning hands. They just drew one of their aces, if you will. Like, they got other aces up their sleeve, but they just drew the biggest ace, one of the biggest ace. Like, they just, like, basically the studios and the AMPTP just dropped a bomb, right on the Writers Guild by basically showing the world, hey, you might support these guys and that's fine, but how can you support them if we're offering everything they want and it's right here in writing? It's right here for you to see. How can you support them if what they're getting right now, currently, we're agreeing to increase to this? You see, this is a game of one-upsmanship, and right now, what they have done, the AMPTP and the studios, is they've drawn one of the biggest aces, they've hit one of the biggest checkmates, and they've dropped one of the biggest bombs. And now it's up to the writers to strike back. It's up to the Writers Guild, to strike back and be like, okay, you want to play that game? We could play it too. It's up to them now to come up, with an answer. And if they don't come up with an answer real soon, then what's going to happen, and I hate to say this, because I want them to get what they want. I want them and the actors to get what they feel they deserve and they believe they've worked hard for. I do. But what's going to happen if they don't come up with a counter, an answer to this, real soon? What's going to happen is it's going to basically blow up in their face, and what's going to happen is it's going to the public that supports them, it's going to expose them for being greedy. Like, hey, they're giving you what you want, but yet you want more? That doesn't make sense. We as the public, the viewing public we would be thankful for something like this. We would be thankful for this. And that you want to cry and whine, oh, it's not what we want? Again, the writers are going to have to come up, the Writers Guild is going to have to come up with an answer, because if not, then this, again, is going to hurt them. This is going to blow up in their face, and they're going to probably have no choice if they don't come up with an answer to say, to this. They're going to have no choice but to be like, okay, you win, we'll take your offer. They're going to have no choice. They're going to have no choice, because I guarantee you, what the AMPTP and the Hollywood studios are hoping is the family members of these writers will see this and be like, well, what more do you want? This sounds good to me. All you're doing is just making a fool out of yourself. That is probably what they're hoping for, and it may or may not, and that may or may not happen. But again, what the writers need to do is come up with an answer, because if they don't, they'll pretty much be stuck with no other option but to take it, because they don't want to look like fools in front of the world or their families. And that's the truth. But what do you guys think? Let me know down below in the comments, as well as in the live chat during the premiere. Like the video. Also, you'll get an audio version of this at BW Roses Discussions Podcast and all your favorite audio podcast locations except for Pandora. But more specifically, check me out on Spotify. But guys, let me know what your thoughts are. How do you feel about this? Do you think maybe this is the best option that they have? Or do you think maybe the writers are right in wanting more? Or do you think the writers, are being exposed and, for being greedy? Let me know. And until next time, I'll talk to y'all later.